Okay. Before we start في ناس عم بيحكوا لك إنه we miss you هيك.
I miss you all too كثير عن جد.
تفضلي.
Okay. Can I start? Okay, perfect. What was I going to start with? Okay, so basically, I graduated in 2019 from George Mason University. I double majored in biology and psychology. Okay, to start with, just a really quick recap of what I did at university. I went to George Mason for 4 years. Okay, and I decided just to major in biology as a pre-medicine, basically as my pre-medicine route, because I wanted to become a doctor. Okay, so I did 4 years of pre-medicine biology. During university, you can choose elective classes. I'm not sure if you know what these classes are, but basically as a biology student, I could have these specific classes that I wanted to do. And basically you can choose whatever class you want. So you can choose music, you can choose business, dance, whatever you want in university. And these are called your elective classes, okay? So when I was thinking about what class to take, one of my friends was like, take a psychology class, it's really easy and all of these things. So I decided to take a psychology class as one of my electives. And then I decided that I loved psychology. It was an amazing first class to start with. And then after that, I kept taking more and more and more classes until I built up as many credit hours as I needed to major in it. So basically at university, what psychology classes are you going to study? So you're going to study Introduction to Psychology. So what it is, it's the study of the human brain, the study of how people think and everything. But I didn't know how deep it was until I actually started taking all of the intensive classes. So basically, you take a class called social psychology, which is how people deal with each other. You take a class called developmental psychology, which basically talks about your psychology from the minute you're born to the minute that you die. So basically it talks about all stages of life. You take abnormal psychology, which talks about clinical diseases and all of these things that encompass disorders like schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, ADHD, all of these things. I'm sure that you've heard about some of the disorders. You can also take forensic psychology, which will tell you about how basically criminal minds think and all of these things. So it was just a very interesting class for me to take and a very interesting course. And then I decided that I didn't have to just know about the body in order to, basically I didn't have to just do biology or whatever I wanted to continue in medical school. So the route that I decided to take was psychiatry. So in order to become a psychiatrist, you need to go to another 4 years of medical school, which is why I'm studying for the medical college admission test. It's a 7-hour exam, very, very intense exam. And this is the exam that you will determine if you are able to go to medical school and become a doctor or not. So for the US, you have 4 years of your pre-med and then 4 years of medical school. And then you decide on what you want to specialize in. So in my case, I feel like I really want to do psychiatry. Another thing that I think it's very important for all students to know, and I wish that somebody told me, was that there's a difference between being a psychiatrist and a psychologist. If you want to be a psychologist, you don't need to do that many years of schooling. You can basically do 4 years of psychology and then do a 2-year master program in counseling. Counseling is divided into many different aspects as well. So you can do child counseling, or you can do marriage counseling or family counseling. So there are many different types of psychological counseling that you can do. And you can get this degree in 2 years and then become a certified counselor or a certified psychologist. The psychologist can not prescribe medication as well. So you need to be a doctor in order to prescribe medication. So a psychiatrist can prescribe medication, which is why you need 4 years of medical school instead of 2. What else? So that's the reason that I'm basically studying for the exam, because I want to become a doctor. So I need 4 other years of schooling. And I just think that psychology in general, I didn't talk about it much in my talk other than the process, but it's very interesting to me because I feel like we need, especially in the Middle East, we need to raise awareness about mental health. We need to raise awareness about the fact that the human brain and your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So basically, you can look amazing and you can look fit and everything, and your physical health is amazing. But when you have mental strains and mental issues that aren't fixed and aren't attended to, they can have a negative impact on your body. They can cause stress. Stress is a major it's a major cause of many disorders or many illnesses that can happen, that can cause I don't want to say cause very severe illnesses, but they can cause illnesses. So I think that getting rid of stress and getting rid of all of these things is a major issue that we should all talk about. I think it's very important to talk to someone and to make your problems and to speak out your problems. So whenever you bottle all your problems in, it will have a negative impact on your body. So I think it's always important to raise mental health awareness, and it shouldn't be frowned upon if somebody goes and talks to a psychologist. There's nothing wrong with them that cannot be fixed. If somebody has a chronic disorder like diabetes, it is the same as basically having another mental disorder that can be simply fixed with a medication or anything. You may just have a mental disorder or a hormone imbalance in your brain, which can easily be fixed. So I don't think that people should keep thinking that it's wrong if you talk to a psychologist or that you're weak. You're not weak. You just have a simple problem that needs fixing. So in my opinion, psychology is an amazing field to go into, and I support everyone going into it. And I also just have one more thing to tell you regarding studies in the UK versus the US. So for the US, I said 4 years of pre-med and then 4 years of med. In the UK, you can actually start with medical school in the beginning. So you don't have to do anything that's pre of that, except for an exam called the UCAT. Okay, it's different from the MCAT in that it's just different content, basically. Okay. So I'm not very familiar with the UCAT, so you'll need to do your research regarding that. So basically, you do the UCAT, you go to medical school, I think 3 or 4 years in England, and then you can specialize for 1 year. A master's in England is 1 year instead of 2. But if you finish from England, you cannot go to work in the US. You will not be an accredited psychologist or doctor, and vice versa. You cannot go and work in the UK if you graduate from the US. So just keep that in mind when thinking about where you want to work. And I think it's just very important for all of you, and the advice that I give you is that it's never too early to plan. Okay, I kept my planning from personal experience. I kept my planning until the last minute, and it was just, it's very stressful. It's a lot of work to do at last minute. So as early as you can just start planning, start making everything that you want into a list. So basically, make your financial plans, make your family plans, everything. Just think about it very realistically and see what's best for you. Don't think too much about where your friends are going to go or something else, because what's right for them may not be right for you. So I think that I am done. Did I speak for 5 minutes? Maybe I spoke a little more.
Thank you. We have a question from Tasneem.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about psychotherapy?
Yes. Psychotherapy. Okay. So basically, it talks about basically it's analyzing the psychological state of somebody specific. Okay. So if you've ever encountered a person and you're like, I'm sure all of you, بحب أشوفكم عشان أحكي بس anyways, okay, I'm sure all of you, or like some of you have been in a situation where you're like, oh my God, why does this person act this way? Or why does this person have this specific attitude? It is most likely that the experiences that this person went through shaped them into the person that they are. They may be minor experiences, they may be major experiences or traumatic experiences. But psychotherapy is basically getting to the root of the problem of why this person is acting in a specific way, or why this person is very aggressive, or this person is very emotional. There's always usually a reason of why we are the way that we are. And I think that that's basically the root of psychotherapy. It's a very long topic, but basically it's just trying to think about why the people think that the way that they do, and then giving them a therapy or giving them a treatment based on everything that they've been through and what the best treatment process for that person is. I hope that answered your question, Tasneem.
Thank you. We have a question from Qais. Which is better, being a psychologist or a psychiatrist?
I can't tell you which is better because they're both very promising careers. But what did I want to say? So basically, I actually, to be very, very honest with you, I applied to both. I applied to psychiatry programs and I applied to psychology programs. But what I thought about in the long run is that the psychiatry program is just 2 extra years. But you will be a doctor, you will be able to prescribe medication. And in my personal experience, I didn't want to keep thinking, what if I could have become a doctor? What if I would have pushed myself 2 extra years? So in my opinion, I just didn't want to keep thinking, what if I would have done, I didn't want to do psychology because I didn't want to take the easy way out. But being a psychologist is maybe more human interactive, and just the fact that you are only talking to a person. So the only way you're healing the person is talking to them. With psychiatry, you can talk to them, but there are also medications, which I think is, they just both have different approaches. I don't think that one is better than the other, but I do think that each one has a different approach. But I do love psychology, and I did apply to many programs in psychology. Also, one last thing, if you do decide that you want to be a psychologist and you want to do a master's and work in Jordan, you can. But the most important thing is when you do your master's, do a master's that has clinical in the title. It's very important. So don't do a master's in advanced psychology. You need to do a master's in advanced clinical psychology or advanced developmental clinical psychology. Clinical has to be in the title because it will make it easier for the process and the boards and the paperwork and everything. So I think that's important for you all to know. But in terms of something being better than the other, there isn't something that's better. Psychology is easier than psychiatry in terms of years of study, but I think they're both very great career paths, and they both have a lot of opportunities.
Thank you. في كمان question from Tasneem. What are the disadvantages of psychotherapy?
Disadvantages of psychotherapy. I can't call these disadvantages, but I can tell you that people are different. So people that are going to come to talk to you, you can't deal with all of the people in the same exact way because they all have different cases. Okay, so I'm not a psychotherapist yet, or a psychiatrist yet, so I can't tell you exactly what the major disadvantages are, but I do know that you need to deal with every person in a customized way. So you need to make their treatment unique based on the experiences that they've been through. So it is, I don't want to say it's a disadvantage, but it is a lot of work in order to be able to give the patient exactly what they need in order to get better, okay? I think that's my answer for the question.
Thank you. Few question from Ms. Summer. How do you think our culture can be more accepting of mental health issues?
Okay. Ms. Summer, I love the question, first of all. I really think that it's important that we, as the new generation, raise mental health awareness in terms of basically not hiding it. If you go and see a therapist, I was actually with my friend the other day, and she was telling me that she goes and sees a psychologist, but she doesn't tell anybody about it. And I asked her why. Why don't you tell anybody about it? It's like if you say that you're going to the dentist, do you hide it? You don't. So why not talk about it? Say that you're going to see a psychologist. You don't need to talk about your issues. You don't need to tell anybody anything personal, but you can say that I'm facing difficult issues. I'm going to see someone for this specific reason. But I do think that it shouldn't be frowned upon, and we shouldn't, us as this new generation, we should raise awareness about this issue in terms of just talking about it more, making it seem more acceptable. Because when people are made fun of or bullied or just frowned upon for going to a psychologist, they will try to hide it, and they will feel like they're doing something wrong when in fact they're just trying to feel better. So if somebody does have a mental health issue, I think it's very important to, or maybe after getting better, talking about your experience, saying what helped, what didn't help, all of these things, just talking about the experiences, I think will be able to raise mental health awareness. I know that we're very far, and we have a very, a lot of people are very narrow-minded. People from our schools and our community come from a very small community, basically in Jordan. So if you go to other communities, they will probably frown upon it even more and say that a person who goes to a psychologist is crazy. We should always try, if anybody says something negative about fixing your mental health, you should fight back and you should give a specific opinion, a strong opinion about how you feel about it and how it's just a disorder and illness just like any other. I think that's my answer for this question.
Thank you. If you have any more questions, please type them in the chat. We're going to wait for like 30 seconds. Okay, we have a question. Do you think psychology is important in business?
Yes. Okay. Another thing that I didn't talk about is that studying psychology in a psychology major, you can also take different aspects of psychology. What do I mean by this? There is business psychology and there is economic psychology. And you can, so when you're working in a company, okay, let's say you major in business and you minored in psychology, just learning about how people think and what the norms are. What are norms? Norms are basically the rules that these people abide by or the rules that these people follow. So you're not going to act the same way that you do at work as you do at home. Okay, so basically it just shows you how different people think, how they think in superior settings versus inferior settings. So I think that it's just important to know how to act around other people, know how to manage a certain situation, know how to deal with team members, and how to talk with people who have very strong egos versus people who are shy. It just teaches you how to be more communicative with different types of people. And I think that it's very important in businesses because it will allow the business to grow, first of all, if there is a decent amount of communication and teamwork and everything. So I don't think that it's very major. Like if you study business and you decided to work in business and you don't know psychology, it's fine. But I do think that it does add to it and it does add value to learning. And I think psychology is everywhere. Studying psychology and learning about how people think and why they react the way that they do is very important in general. And a lot of people do have small disorders, whether it's OCD or ADHD or just like a small disorder that impacts their life, but they're shy to talk about it because not many people have the same disorder. They feel like it's frowned upon or whatever. But I think that it's everywhere and it's all around us, and we should be proud of ourselves and proud of who we are and just try to be better versions of ourselves. And I think psychology is important for that.
We have a question from Tasneem. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking of majoring in psychology?
What advice would I give? Okay. So it depends, first of all, where you're studying, like I said. But if you decide that you want to study psychology to become a psychologist, like I said, 4 years and then a master's, my advice is basically just to, before going into it, make sure that you love it. Make sure that it's something that interests you and it's something that you actually want to do and you want to have a career in. One disadvantage I will say about psychology, or not disadvantage, but thing that I think you should all think about, is how well you can handle hearing problems, okay? Or listening to a problem or trying to fix a problem. Because some people will say, I'm a great helper and everything and all of these things, but they're emotionally impacted. So let's say Tasneem and Qais and Kareem and all of these people come and tell me all their problems. If I don't know how to compartmentalize my problems and not be affected by them, this will not make me a good psychologist, because if I'm affected by the problems and I'm sad when each one of you tells me your story, this will take a toll on you. So a lot of people, when they were talking to me and I was telling them about being a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they would tell me, sorry, in Arabic, شو بدك بهالهم, or whatever. I thought about the end goal, and the end goal is basically that you're going to be able to make a person a better version of themselves. You're going to be able to make somebody a happier version of themselves. So I like to look at the end goal, but you do need to think about the fact that you cannot be affected by the person that's talking to you, and you need to be neutral. You need to be basically, you need to put a wall up in between you and the person, and just basically try to help them become better versions of themselves without negatively impacting yourself. And I think that's my advice to somebody who wants to study psychology.
Thank you, Jude. If you have any more questions, please type them in the chat. Sabine, what made you consider studying psychology?
This is the first thing that I talked about. In terms of, I went in for pre-meds, it's the most like, they like it if you take a science class, either physics, chemistry, or biology. I decided to take biology because I'm not a big fan of physics. And then I was given my elective classes and decided to do psychology after I started taking a couple of classes and loved it so much. I decided to keep going on with it because I didn't know that it was this vast array of all of these topics and ways of thinking and mental disorders. And I just didn't know what it was until I actually started learning it more. And that's the reason that I decided to continue with it in university.
Okay, thank you. Do any of you have any more questions? We're gonna wait for like 30 seconds before we end the meeting. Okay.
No more questions. Just want to say to all of my students, I do miss you a lot, and I hope that you're all doing well. And I wish you all the best of luck. I'm sorry I had to leave you again.